We want to swiftly move on to the next plenary panel discussion, and the topic is highlighting what has worked and what has not worked in using cutting-edge innovation, technologies, research, evaluation, results to enhance growth in the horticulture sector. And to lead this panel is Betty Kibara, Director, Rockefeller Foundation. Let's welcome Betty with a clap. Betty is going to be working with Professor Mary Abukutsa Onyango. Please welcome TVC Research Enterprise, JKUAT. Then we have Dr. Jackie Atim of Nero, Uganda. Jackie, you're welcome. And then we have Dr. Salamawat Ketema, Head of Horticulture Research from Ethiopia. This is a star-studded panel, all female. Wonderful, wonderful. The other one was all men. So this is very good. So without taking too much time, let me just ask Betty to pick up from there. We are trying to manage the time. We realized we went a little more than we should have the last session. So I just want to ask that you run on from there.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Betty Kibara. I'm a director at the Rockefeller Foundation, and I lead different work streams at the foundation. Our main focus is on good food, so we have a lot of work going on with the school feeding programs to improve the diets. But that's not the focus of today, but there's a lot of alignment. Now, I would have wanted to allow my participants to introduce themselves, but unfortunately we don't have too much time. So we do have Professor Mary Onyango, and then we have she's a deputy vice chancellor at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. Then we have Jackie Atim, Naro in Uganda, and then we have Dr. Salamawit Ketema, who is the head for horticulture research in Ethiopia. So we are really, really well represented here. And maybe I would just want to ask you a question before we can get started. Something interesting about yourself that we don't know. Very, very briefly.
Thank you very much, moderator. Something about me you don't know is that I eat African indigenous vegetables in my meal every day. Thank you. Correct. Or you knew, Lusiki says she knew. Some people don't know I eat it. Indigenous vegetables every day because they are horticultural produce and they are nutritious and they have been neglected and we must take them to the international market. So I eat them, research about them, and I just want all of us to follow that footsteps. You eat indigenous vegetables every day, wherever you come from. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, while I have a background in crop protection, my passion is in value addition, changing everything that I can to make it taste different, look different.
Okay, thank you. First to correct, I am not head of research, but I am working in vegetable research and I am a researcher in that. So I agree with her. I am very much interested in African indigenous vegetable because we are searching another thing what we don't have instead of searching what we have in hand because they are very nutritious and tolerate different stress.
All right, so thank you. So this session actually builds a lot from the previous session, and I think listening to especially OJ was quite inspiring that science and innovation must be given space. And I also like the words of Steve Jobs, who said he's the one who developed the Apple phone and iPhone, and he says that innovation is the only way to win. And I think in the previous conversation here, there was a lot of conversation about the role of innovation in technologies. And when we think about innovation, we think about innovation in different formats, whether it's innovation in a product, or it's in an innovation in a process, or service, or partnership, or value creation. And we do know that Africa is a hub for many innovations. And horticulture in itself is techie intensive, and we also know that there has been a lot of innovation and development in the horticulture space, but we are not still where we are supposed to be. For example, if you look at the contribution of Africa to research, I think that was one of the issues raised here. We only contribute about 2% of the research output. So, but we do know that we have a lot of pockets of successes, and then therefore this session is looking at what has worked, what has not worked, and why. And we should also be deep diving a little bit into what is that environment that really supports innovations to thrive. What can we do differently? And the ones which have really not worked, which are they, and maybe should we continue working with them? Or should we just, of course, we focus on what has worked? So that this session is what it's all about. And starting with you, Mary, from the university's perspective, we've just had, of course, universities a good resource for research. And a while ago, I coined a term, taking innovations from the lab to the land. The university has, I do believe you have come up with a lot of innovations. So I'd like you to explain to us, from your point of view, which are some of those innovations that you think have really worked? And what I mean by working, it could be it has been scaled to many farmers and many value chain actors. It could have also been, maybe been adopted in other countries, and it's also making horticulture and the value chains, the crop value chains, improving efficiency. So whichever innovations that you choose, just let us know which those are and why they also worked in your perspective. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say that true enough, innovation and technology development has a space to play. And as the previous panel said, we cannot work in isolation. So in the university and other research centers, there are several innovations that have been developed and also technologies. And these have been done by young people and other researchers. At the university, we have students, and we have researchers who are professors, and we have also research institutions. Before I go to specific innovations, I want to say that all innovations can be very simple, middle in terms of complexity, or very complex. The success of each of the innovation depends on how much of that innovation has been adopted. So you can have a very excellent innovation, but it is not being used. So I would like to say that we have several innovations that we have, not just in the universities, but as in Kenya, that has touched and influenced the horticulture sector at various levels, starting from, we call the value chain, input section, production, post-harvest, and even consumption. So I want to pick some of them. There are very many, but maybe because of time, I want to say that in the horticulture sector, first of all, they say that the crop is as good as the quality of the seed. So we have had some innovations in seed in terms of developing new varieties of some of the horticultural produce, especially the vegetables. And here I would want to be biased and say, for example, in the recent past, we have developed in Kenya new varieties of African indigenous vegetables. I studied that because some of the innovations that make a lot of impact are the innovations that are solving our own problems, starting with our rich biodiversity. So this innovation, Carlo, and other universities, including JKUAT, Maseno, and UN, we have worked on this innovation, and we have come up with varieties that are nutritious, that have been registered by KEPHIS, and they are being adopted. This has been taken, I've taken it as fast because farmers were looking for indigenous vegetables, seeds, and this was determined by a survey we did all over Kenya. So because this aspect was neglected for a long time, and usually an innovation is developed out of need, is normally easily adopted. So I have seen this grow in the last 10 years. You could not find indigenous vegetables on the supermarkets. And because of that, of course, among other things, having good varieties, and then along with it, we have had also technologies developed in productivity, how to produce and how to do post-harvest handling in terms of preservation and so on. So we have worked along with different stakeholders. And I would like to put that as number one for reasons I've just said, because that is our own, and we have to start with our own. Then secondly, we have had technologies in areas of value addition. This we have not done very well. But I want to give you a bit of what I learned recently. I learned recently, as recent as I think 2 weeks ago, that there is a silent navigation act that determines whether a particular country or a particular region can move their product into business. So what happens is we do a lot of technologies in Kenya or in Africa, in East Africa, but it never goes beyond that. We never develop this into a business. So we have had technologies where we can add value to many of our products. We have drying technologies for fruits and vegetables. We have juices, like, let me use my example because that's where I sit. Like Jomo Kenyatta, we have actually so many products. Juice from our fruits, juice from our vegetables, juices, and we have honey. And it just, someone asked me, how far have you gone? Why have you not built an industry of these products? So we have all those products, very nutritious, but they have not gone beyond maybe Jomo Kenyatta and a few shows, and we have not reached the market. So I have wanted, we've tried even to link with the supermarkets, but there's always a snag. But I'm told there's something behind the scenes. As we sit here, I want you to go and find what this Navigation Act is, what it's saying. I learned about it. It's something that you cannot go beyond a particular ceiling if you come from a particular region. What I'm saying is this, that big industries in Kenya, why don't we have big industries in horticulture in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania? Why must we depend on multinationals that are coming from other countries? Why can't we do it? Let's find out that one. So there are so many products. I cannot even say other researchers who have come up with products. So we are talking about even how to make bread, how to make bread from sweet potato and so on. So there's just numberless. So I want to say that we have products that can lead into building industries of indigenous knowledge, indigenous innovations that are developed by indigenous people. Although indigenous means Africans, Kenyans, Ugandans, Tanzanians. Why must we look at that? So there's a lot that we cannot mention all of it. Next, I want to go to some other technologies which have come in the recent past. We have this smartphone technology. One of our students developed what we call M-Shamba. And M-Shamba is a technology where there's a platform where the farmers and also they can get a lot of information to improve production. And there are many other applications. In closing, because of time for this particular part, I want to mention other emerging technologies. Why I want to mix them is because we have been told that Africa, we have a lot of young people, and for us to attract them, we must have other technologies that will bring them in, so that we can merge the old and the young, so that we can be successful. So some of the technology will help us to attract for young people is what we are calling now digital farming. Digital farming is self-explanatory, where you mostly use either the phone or whatever, and you do your work online, and you either it's selling the product, whether you are talking about pests and diseases, whether you are looking at productivity. Those are some of the technologies that are emerging, and the young people are embracing it. And the other one I would like to say in broad terms is farm automation. We are calling it modern greenhouses. Modern greenhouses, you see, when the greenhouse technology came, everybody took it very fast in Kenya, and everybody was growing the greenhouse tomatoes. Of course, there are issues which came up. So some of these technologies have coming up. Some of them have worked, like many people, young people have been getting a lot of money from growing greenhouse tomatoes until recently. But then we have others like the drones. The drones are coming in to help to increase productivity. So the technologies are many, members and the chair, that they're countless. But how to make them more successful? We need to maybe look at how can we move this technology from the shelf to the people? And we have had some efforts to do that. Some of the efforts we've made as a country and as a university is involving the practitioners, working together with government, having partnerships with the industry and with farmers. In fact, just last week, I was opening a workshop in Kisumu, where actually there's a project that's now bringing together farmers from beginning of the project to the end, because we normally develop these technologies and we bring them to the practitioner, but they don't want it. So for them to own it, we must bring them at appropriate time. And this can help. But for now, I'll stop there. I think that we have a basket full of innovations in Kenya and East Africa that we need to exploit to make a change in the horticulture sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And those are indeed quite a number of innovation. I remember last year, about 2 years ago, when I visited Wageningen University in the Netherlands. And I don't think there is a lot that you could borrow from the Netherlands, because what they do is that they have what they call the golden triangle, where before you even start a research, the private sector comes in and makes a request to you, whether it's a new product or process. And then you work jointly with them to develop the product, so that once you have the product, then it's not a product that just doesn't belong to someone. So I think that could be something that the African institution can adopt. And this the golden triangle has the university, it has the government, it has the extension officers, and then it has the private sector. So we totally understand there is a challenge here, but I'm sure there are many other ways of unlocking that. So Jackie, when you're introducing yourself, you said you're passionate about value addition. What are you doing in Uganda? What are some of the technology innovations that you think are, have been scalable in Uganda? Thank you.
Thank you so much. There are so many technologies that have been promoted by NARO and the universities. However, one that comes out vividly is the promotion of improved vegetable varieties. Since 2005, most of the farmers were growing OPVs, that is the open pollinated varieties, in vegetables. But to date, you would see there has been a 60% where most of the farmers are growing hybrid vegetables. However, that comes with a challenge, because as research, we actually evaluate and demonstrate seeds that are coming from Holland and abroad, and then you recommend it to farmers. And we have the number of seed companies in quote, because most of the seed companies in Uganda actually don't do breeding, apart from very few that do the breeding. So that comes with a challenge. Most of the vegetable seeds that we are promoting in Uganda have actually been bred outside Uganda. So we're just doing demonstration and see if it really does improve. So even if we have a big number of farmers growing hybrids and the yields are going up, there are other challenges that come up with it, pests and diseases and the like. And then seeing that challenge, that is when research decided to promote indigenous vegetables, and then very big numbers of farmers are growing indigenous vegetables, and the youth have got involved in the group of Amaranthus, the Nakatis, and research promoted by providing seed and working with seed companies to promote the growing of indigenous vegetables. And value addition, we have had several projects in research that is doing value addition. If you get to know, children basically hate eating vegetables. Now, when you bring it down to indigenous vegetables, the children will really not eat it. So we have had projects where we turn the indigenous vegetables into snacks, the bagias and the chapatis, and it makes it very easy for the children to eat. And then Narrow has very many zones, and I work in one which is handling the central region, that is the Lake Victoria Crescent Zone. And we have promoted different technologies in what we call the urban and peri-urban farming. Those are the small gardens. Unlike Nairobi, where maybe you find little space, in Uganda, even in Kampala, you'd find some space where you would have a small garden. And this helped so much during the COVID outbreak, where most families would at least grow something small, vegetables. So we have tried to promote this, and in our last study we found that the uptake of those who have taken up this technology was close to 300 million. That is in the districts surrounding Kampala and within Kampala. And then we have technologies which is coming into biological control, like in tomatoes we had the tuta absoluta, very big problem, and we worked with farmers using different biological controls to control tuta. And also the fruit fly, with the help of Dr. Nanchinga, who is right here, we have also tried to use biological control for the control of fruit flies in the different districts that have been growing, especially mangoes. And we have got different technologies on, like the avocado. Unlike the rest of the countries in the region that took up avocado earlier, that is the Hass avocado that has taken up the globe, Uganda has just of recent joined up, and we realized that we needed to provide true to type seedlings, because many farmers were buying it, and then the seedlings were very expensive. So research came in to see to it that we do the grafting, provide the seedlings at a subsidized level, and took up the technologies to help farmers with the agronomies of this Hass avocado, being that it is new. However, as we are trying to promote this, the growing of avocado, most of the farmers, while those who are taking, the take-up is very slow. And the reason they're saying that, research always brings in new technologies, like we brought in vanilla, and then when vanilla growing went up, we disappeared. They didn't have the solution to the flooded vanilla. So they're saying, okay, there is market for Hass avocado, but then what happens when we grow Hass avocado later? And we have the flood again. Will research come in and help us? And there is a mentality where research says, for us, we remain at research, and then extension takes over. So that linkage is not there. Then there is new that has been promoted in Narrow, where they want it to be a system approach. You go down to the value addition. So right now we are trying to add value to the avocados, and also to try to understand our own indigenous avocados that we have before we tell them, because Uganda, we are blessed, we have so many avocados varieties within. So before we actually encourage most farmers to cut down the avocado that they have to grow Hass, as research, we're trying to understand and work with the farmers and try to understand the different avocados that we have. And finally, for the youth, is we are trying to put in different Narrow institutes in the zone, because we have the zoning, what we are calling the incubation centers, and they're not only in Narrow, but Makerere also has, where the youth comes with the idea, and then they develop this idea into a product. But what we have realized, when I came in, I saw Professor Jane's products, and I realized that as a region, we reinvent the wheel. If we could work as a region, because if Jane has already developed the product and is working with Narrow, we really don't have to start developing this same product. We would just have to get the same idea, like coming up with, I saw she had flakes for mangoes, And we're doing value addition in Uganda. In mangoes, we remain with the puree, the juices, and then drying it. So I believe with these different technologies in value addition, it would be nice to work as a region, as they had already mentioned, that it is good to work as a team. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Those are many innovations, and I see a lot of alignment between some of the areas you have mentioned and those that Mary mentioned. It's really around the indigenous vegetables. That's quite interesting. So, Dr. Ketema, what's happening in Ethiopia? What has been your role? What are some of the innovations coming from there? And also, if you can speak about any innovations or technologies that have not worked, as Jackie was saying, we also don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there is something which didn't work, then we don't have to keep pushing it. And if something worked, then it's worth replicating. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. We are working in collaboration with universities. We are developing so many technologies, especially for small-scale farmers. Different varieties are released, especially OPVs for small-scale farmers, and also register different hybrid varieties in collaboration with different seed companies, especially for vegetable, for fruits, for major fruits, for mango, avocado, citrus. We almost have all commercial varieties around across the world. We collect them and we establish and test across different agroecologies and recommended from different agroecologies. We also develop crop protection measure for control of disease and pest management. Develop different IPM option for instance varieties. For example, for cabbage, for diamond black moss, especially for highland cabbage, using botanical control using parasitoids. We almost control 100% using the botanical one for highland cabbage. And for tomato tuta absoluta, we develop IPM package using sequential application of the registered chemicals using different traps and planting time, adjustment of planting time. We're also working in different crop management, in fertilizer application rate and frequency, population density and irrigation. In Ethiopia, there is no any responsible organization to produce seed and planting materials for horticultural crops. So we are also working in propagating seed. As she said, in Uganda, we almost import the vegetable seed from abroad. So what we are trying is identify different seasons and agroecologies, because we have pockets agroecologies and areas for different cool seasons, for the temperate one, for subtropical and tropical vegetables and fruits. We identify that and we start producing the seeds in support with universities and research centers. We also establish modest facilities for mass propagation and disease-free materials, tissue culture for banana, pineapple, and sweet potato, aeroponics for mass propagation of potato. We also work in post-harvest, in value addition and preservation. We train farmers do preservation and value addition product when they have surplus product, but still needs more work in that area. We are also working in technology promotion using farmers' research crop, and we evaluate whatever the technology we have before release. We evaluate together with the farmers in participatory evaluation of the technologies. But still we have so many works to do. We are dependent in exotic variety, unlike Kenya and Uganda. Almost 95 or more than that %, we are working with exotic vegetables and fruits. So we ignore only what we have. So we are dependent from outside. So we need to investigate the genetic potential of the already available materials. We are losing the genetic resource we have. We only release one amaranthus variety from indigenous vegetables. The other one is most exotic, work in garlic and shallot, the indigenous ones. The other one are most, we are dependent on the exotic ones. So we should work even for the exotic one for different purpose, for processing, fresh market, for different markets. We should work on that. The crop protection, almost it's based on the pesticides. And crop protection measures should not be based not only in the pesticide use. We should develop different IPM options and others to reduce this pesticide residue and to promote safe products. And also in relation to this climate change, we should work for different stress. Now the disease and the pest development is increasing from time to time, the salinity, the drought and the heat. So we have also a gap in this one. And for propagation of seed and planting material, we are planning to work, or we are starting to work with farmers' unions and private companies to produce seeds in the countries. In the post-harvest handling, it's in this much is not done in that areas.
We are not hearing you very well. Just get close to your mic.
Okay. For our technology is not working. For example, we developed one onion varieties. In our tradition, we have onion is recently introduced variety. We are using shallot. Shallot has pungent and red color. So when we develop onion variety, initially we develop brown color onion because we are considering only the yield, the post-harvest life, and the other quality. After releasing that variety, we promote it for the farmers, but it's not working just because of the color. So we should consider the consumer preference and the agroecologists.
Right, thank you. And I think those are many technologies, and I'll come to the next set of questions. But I thought, is there anyone with a burning question from the three speakers? I can give one or two people a chance to ask a question. Anybody? Yes, please. Can you give them a mic, please?
It's not a question, actually. It's just a comment. I'm observing a lot of indigenous vegetables, and I'm really very, very passionate. However, I would like to see also something we are overlooking down there that has really worked, especially in Uganda, from what my colleague has just given. The issue of these herbs. You know, we have many herbs there in Uganda that are booming in the private sector, on the market. Those people are doing their own innovations. Even us in the formal sector, we go and eat them. So I'd like to see how this one comes out. We have the milondos, we have the rosemaries, we have so many other indigenous products. I would like to know, how is it in Kenya? How is it in Ethiopia? Is it the same trend that we have in Uganda? And how do we bring them on board? Because they're doing a lot. Yeah.
Any other question? No? Okay, so who wants to answer that one? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Because of time, we focus on a few value chains, like we have said, but there are many we have left out. So one of which is herbs and spices. And within Kenya, actually, the Kaldro, the equivalent of Naro in Uganda, even Uganda. So they actually have a whole section. The head of department is here. I don't know if she talked about it yesterday, Dr. Lusike, about somebody else. Yeah, so we have a whole section. Actually, we are focusing on it. So it's coming up in terms of productivity, in terms of developing even products, especially in the recent past. now that even during this COVID time, people actually are going for those herbs and they have become more popular. So it's a sector that's really growing very fast, especially the youth. I've seen growing rosemary, ginger, garlic, all those herbs, basil and so on. So it's a booming section and it has a lot of potential in terms of income generation. But because I don't deal with it directly, but I think if Lucy can say something, because there's a whole section within the KALRO that is looking at that, focusing on that, but it's an area, as you're saying, is growing very fast because of the wellness. People are looking at their wellness. It has a lot of money and the potential for processing is okay. It is actually coming up. So I think we're on the same page. If we can now collaborate as a region, I think it's an area that we can even produce some of these, what we call alternative medicine in terms of prevention of some of these, the lifestyle disease and other diseases. Thank you, my comment.
All right, I think that is satisfactory. So just following up on the conversation we had with each one of you, you shared a whole long list of many things that have come out from universities and research institutions. That's very, very exciting. But I think it was also very clear that while a lot of those have gone to the market, they have come from the lab to the land, there's still a lot of work that still need to be done. So from your point of view, and maybe starting with you, Mary, what do you think needs to be done to really, drive, more scale, drive higher adoption, whether it's of any of the, technologies that you've talked about? What is that missing? Is it financing? Is it the private sector? Are there policies? What are those missing pieces, or what is that we need to do differently so that we can increase access and adoption of all these technologies, whether by farmers or the value chain actors? And we can start with you, Mary.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, in my opinion, one of the issues that we need to look at is that we must work together. I think we can't re-emphasize that more. As the previous panel said, we cannot go far if we walk alone. We find that for a long time, research institutions in the past have been working alone, especially universities. In fact, there's a term they use in Kenya's, the Nairobi University or Adeni, when it was the only university, the ivory tower. But then the university has looked, even now it's no longer an ivory tower, but it was then. But then we found even an ivory tower, you cannot survive. And this is the hub of innovations, formal innovation. Of course, as someone said, there are some innovations that are done, they are not in the university. So one thing is we must do collaboration. And collaboration means collaboration with everybody. In fact, you mentioned the golden trinity. Is it triangle? It should not be more than a triangle. It should be actually a golden system. It should not be a triangle. Because we find that, like my colleague said earlier, the universities and researchers we used then just go and think of ideas, come up with innovations, and now we go and force it down the throat of the practitioners. And this was mostly rejected. So we must just have to work with everybody. And the two groups that have always been neglected is the practitioner, like the farmer, and the media. Because I found out that when I started working with the media as a researcher, my research was more known. When you work with the media, it helps you simplify what you have actually done in a way that it can be understood. And I had to do this through a training, because many of us, as you would hear, we talk around jargon. We talk, to us, is something we understand. But I was told if you are talking to the public, you are talking to the common people, you must find a way of communicating. So what I'm saying is we must work with other people. We must work with the government, beyond the triangles. That is key. We can't re-emphasize that more. Two, we must also not forget the youth. I will say this many times. Every time I talk about agriculture or horticulture, we must not forget the youth, because many times we emphasize agriculture or horticulture, but we tend to leave this group out. And I'll tell you, we have a gold mine of young minds that we are neglecting. I want to give us an example, because at the university, for example, where I am I find that we normally have Tech Expo every year. And we find every year, these undergraduate students, they come with very wonderful technologies, very young people. And these technologies are actually very good, are very practical to solve problems. Just to give an example, there's one who came up with a weeder, a smart weeder, where there was a tractor with some gadgets and it could differentiate between a cabbage and a weed. So that was, I think, last year. So this really intrigued me. So we must not leave out the youth in terms at all levels, either at the invention point, let them give them opportunity to tell us the ideas. Secondly, in practicing and in also farming, because we have always thought that farming is for the old people. But I'm saying we are not undermining the old people. We must bring them together. They must work together. Yeah, because you find that some of the young students I have, they actually have formed companies. They are doing smart urban farming. They are actually running a very good production system. They can even set for you a system. They can set for you irrigation system if you want, especially in urban areas. So if we give these young people a chance, we must give them a chance for us to succeed. And then to the other traditional farmers, they shouldn't be left behind. We must just hold their hands and educate them. If it's a new technology, let them own it. Because the problem we have had is we would have always neglected the end users. We just must have them so that when we are starting the innovation, they will ask you questions. They will tell you what are the issues. And then as you address those issues, like the chair of the session said, now you are working together because now you are solving a problem. And I think that I want just to say this because it's my area of research. Actually, why I think that African indigenous vegetables techniques were adopted, because we went out the country, asked what are the issues, and these people, everybody, the ones who are growing it, the ones who are even cooking it in your hotels, they said didn't have recipes. So we developed all those technologies that were easily adopted. So let us work together. That's the main thing. And also the new technology, let's bring people and explain. Lastly, I see you are holding your microphone. Lastly, I want to say that even this a new technology, we must say the pros and the cons. You know, we normally come and say, these are very good technology. When it goes into practice, the cons or the negative aspects we never mentioned comes in. And I will just cite the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution brought in, we are told to use the artificial fertilizers, use whatever, use this. And then now people are going back to organics. So we must just be frank and say, yes, these are the benefits and these are the negative aspects. For every technology, there is a positive, there is a negative. And if the positive outweighs the negative, then we use it. So we should never overemphasize the positive without looking at the negative. Those are some of the points I think that if we look at them, they can help the adoption of some of their technologies. Thank you.
Thanks, Marian. That's very well articulated. And I don't know whether we'll have time at the end. I would also want to hear a little bit more about your fourth point. Of course, we have had challenges of green revolution and the impacts, but the question is, what are the universities doing in terms of coming up with technologies that encourage regenerative agriculture? That would be maybe the last question if we have time. So, just Jackie, over to you.
Thank you. If you realize, I don't know how it is in Kenya and Ethiopia, but in Uganda you find the private sector is actually moving faster than research. While you are still investigating something on biological control or something, you find it is already within the populace. So at the end of the day, you find out that our research is not meeting the crucial needs that it is. When those who are experienced in exporting were the previous panelist here, you realize that the needs assessment of each category along the value chain sometimes is not taken into consideration, and this is because to do with finance and funding into research. So we have such a challenge that where in order for us to at least get all the needs before we do research, and this we don't get to reach that point because of funding challenges. And then the policies, you find that the policies are in place. Just as Kenyans were saying, they're very good at putting up policies and strategies. Ugandans were also very good at policies, strategies. When it comes to implementation, it also becomes a problem. So you find that most of the things are actually not working in promotion and technology active, and it has something to do with policies that are in place. And then there, I don't know how it is in our neighboring countries, but you'll find the government brings in a policy at this place, and then it works like for 3-4 years. Then there is immediate change. Because, for example, in extension, we had something to do with the advisory services, and then the advisory services was scrapped up. Another policy or program comes in. So before we have really understood how the previous was working, you find that something else has really come in, and these are more to do with change of programs and change of operations, which also does affect. So I believe for technology promotion and uptake to take place is we need to have the linkage, a strong linkage between the farmers, the end users, the researchers, and the policy makers. At the end of the day, there has to be that strong link that is put in place. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with Sam. And to add another point, this sector is capital intensive, so it's important to consider this. For example, the private farmers, they have better access to information for the technology. They are allowed to import any seeds or chemicals, any technology from abroad. They have all the package, so they are in the good position. But the small-scale farmers, they don't have that capital. For example, when we promote protected cultivation for tomato and cucumber, they don't have that capital. So facilitating the credit facility for the youth and the women are very important, because most of the vegetables and the fruits are produced around the urban areas. So credit facility for them is important, and also creating awareness for the urban society is important, because whatever they produce, they sell in the urban area. So the urban people, when they consume diversified vegetables, it creates access for the small-scale farmers. If the small-scale farmers and the large-scale farmers produce the same types of vegetables and pros, it's difficult to compete with the large farmers. So it's better to diversify the fruit and vegetable crops that our small-scale farmers produce, like in Kenya and Uganda. If they produce indigenous one, the small-scale farmers, they can have much access to the market and they get a much better price. So it is, they can take the technology easily.
All right, thanks. I know I'm required to end shortly. I can see you. I'm in control. So before we just finish, I think we'll have done disservice if we also don't talk about any innovation around regenerative agriculture. We know the issue of climate change is real. Is there anything the university is doing? For example, do you want to just take like a minute before we finish? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, the university and other partners, we are actually in Kenya looking at the regenerative agriculture, where we're looking at issues. For example, first of all, within the university, where we have programs for agriculture and horticulture, we are actually restructuring the programs to include that aspect deliberately. Organic farming and all the things which were not there in the previous programs. So that's the first step, because most of the students we produce are going to go out there, practice or be change makers. So that's the first step. The second step is about research. We have a lot of research ongoing on organic farming and regenerative agriculture from different researchers within the university, because we have a College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And in addition to that, we have a whole department of organic farming, where we have technologies on vermiculture, how to produce all these organic products like fertilizers. which actually we come and sell. So that is an area that we are exploiting, and actually there is a lot of response from people. So we go out there, apart from just doing the university, when we have exhibitions and we have shows like the Nairobi Trade Fair and the other shows, we have been showing people how to practice organic agriculture. So we are taking it very serious, and I think it is, I think we should focus on working together with other organizations like SACDEP, which focuses on organic agriculture, and it's an area that actually we are putting as a priority in terms of training, research, and in extension work. So we are on it, but we are not there yet. But I think more emphasis should be put on that because that's the way to go. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. This session we looked at innovations and the role they play in the horticulture industry. And I think we have had a very exciting conversation. What I can just crown it all, I can say we have a lot of successful pilots, but we need to drive these pilots to scale. And I think we have also emphasized on what needs to be done. It's not just identifying the challenge, but what needs to be done. And I think I'll just highlight just a few. We discussed about the role of collaboration and the golden system, the role of the youth, educating farmers, and also making sure we are not doing more damage to the environment as we innovate. We've also talked about demand-driven research, research for who and for what. And I think there needs to be a very good link between the private sector and the universities. We also just highlighted a little bit about enabling policies and finance. And with those few words, I just want to share one of the proverbs, Tanzanian proverb that says that 2 ants don't fail to lift a grasshopper. So let's all collaborate and work together, and I'm sure we can be able to lift this. Thank you so much for your time. And Mr. Senior Moderator, I'm 2 minutes over time, but you can say that I've tried. Thank you. Please let's clap for them.
Fantastic job. Done very, very, very well. Thank you so much. You have handled a very complex topic in a very detailed way, but captured it within a very short time. Thank you so much. Let's appreciate the panel once again. I think they have done justice to that topic, and now we have a lot of takeaways from that in terms of those innovations. So let's look and see how we can go to move forward with that. We are ready for a tea break, are we? Yeah. So before we go for the tea, we have some information we'd like to share with you, and I would like to request that you listen to this attentively. We want to request that we take tea for about 10 minutes or less, if possible. In other words, from the time we leave here to come back should be 10 minutes or less. The reason for that is that we've got a survey that we want to undertake. And for us to undertake that survey, we need to play a video for you to listen to, and then we can be able to undertake the survey. Now, the survey is online and can be taken with your phone or with your laptop, but for best results, the laptop would be best. So if you've got a laptop in the room or elsewhere, you could bring it into the room so that right after tea, we can be able to do the survey. It should take us about 10-15 minutes after tea before we go into the next panel. So kindly, if you've got a laptop, have it with you. We can try the phones, but I think the results will not be very, very good. And yes, Anya.
I think we have a challenge with the connection. So maybe before you let us all connect here, maybe the technicians can look at how to solve this with the hotel. Okay. Because many of us don't have on our phones or on the laptops. Upstairs, downstairs, there's no connection.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you, Anya, for pointing that out. We will look at that with the technical team and see how we're going to move forward. So let's take a quick 10-minute break. enjoy our tea, then come back. If you see me coming to encourage you to come back inside, don't look at me with bad eyes. Enjoy your tea. Thank you very much.